Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Are you ready to pop your cork? In the left corner at 6'4", 242 pounds, with a record of 45-0, the undisputed.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Will.
Hey, how many bottles of wine have you had?
Well, Will, it's not the wine. I'm just so excited about the podcast.
Yeah, I am too. But this is not a boxing match. This is We Know Texas Vino.
Salute.
Welcome all you Texas wine lovers. I am your host, Will. This is We Know Texas Vino. We are coming to you from Robert Clay Vineyards Estate Winery, and we're happy to have Dan and Blake McLaughlin here. McLaughlin. You know, I've been having trouble saying names all week long.
Well,
you would think as much wine as I drank, I would actually start enunciating names.
We actually have an inside family discussion about our name.
because we say it so quick. We say McLaughlin, and
both mumble a little bit.
There's not a G in there. But
I mean, I'm looking at the G. There's
it's like McLaughlin.
We always go McLaughlin.
We always go McLaughlin.
It is what it is. It's my name.
So, guys, it's an honor to be here to talk to y'all. Out of all the wineries here in Mason, y'all are like one of the top 30 people that have been talked about quite often. And so it was an honor to be here also. Don has talked highly about y'all quite a bit, both on and off air. So we're happy to be here. So right now, what are we drinking? What do you got in front of us? You poured us two different wines. I mean, the same wine, but two different styles.
Yeah, so this is our Chardonnay. It's kind of one of the things we've become known for. Chardonnay was something that Russ Kane told me back in the day when I told him we grew Chardonnay. He laughed at me and he said, "You can't grow Chardonnay in Texas." He's since taken that back publicly. And you can grow Chardonnay in Texas. It just has to be grown in the right spot.
Right.
You know, and Haas Newsom actually picked Robert Clay Vineyard's spot.
Really?
So if you know the history, you know, Neil and Haas Newsom, that's Neil Newsom's father. Mm-hmm. I actually have his credit card sitting over there in the taste room. I've got it mounted. I found it in the Chardonnay one day when I was walking through the Chardonnay. I looked down on the ground and there was an American Express, and I picked it up, and it was Haas Newsom's Amex. And I quickly sent a text to Neil and said, "Isn't this your dad's credit card?" And he goes, "Yeah, where'd you find that?" I said, "Laying on the ground in the Chardonnay." But the Buiss who originally started Robert Clay Vineyards, that Haas Newsom helped them pick the property.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, you know, I purposely didn't have y'all tell me what this was because I want to see if I can figure out what it was. And honestly, it didn't taste like a Chardonnay because, you know, I always hear Chardonnays are oaky and buttery. And this was neither one.
I don't do that style of Chardonnay.
So I'm not a big fan of the oaky buttery. You know, it's my wine. I don't want heavy oak. I don't want butter in it. If I wanted butter, I'll go get some fried chicken.
Yeah, right.
You know, but there's another Chardonnay. Actually, there's two Chardonnays now y'all are the third Chardonnay that I'll drink now. So Grayson Davies out at Arcade, he does a Chardonnay that's absolutely gorgeous. And he was the first Chardonnay I actually really enjoyed. And then there was another Chardonnay that we drank this week. I'm drawing a blank on who it was. I got a bottle of that. Not Hilmy.
Go pour the 17 so he can try that too.
And so this is the third bottle of Chardonnay that I actually like. That it's actually I'm going to add to my collection at the house.
Yeah, so that one is the unfiltered. So that one had and that is that barrel one, Blake?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's barrel one. That's no sulfites.
Oh.
And unfiltered. At barrel aged in a neutral barrel. So I use the same 3 barrels every vintage. So when I'm ready to go into bottle, I bottle and I go straight back into the barrel. I don't even rinse the barrels out. So I go straight back in, close it up. And the next year I do the same thing.
I want to say that's kind of dirty.
Well, I do that.
Not dirty as in bad, but dirty as in, you know, good.
Yeah, I do that because like there's no reason to, if the wine's good, there's no reason to introduce any more risk in the process other than empty the thing and immediately fill it back up.
Right. That is actually really, really good Chardonnay.
Thank you.
Okay, see, now you bring in a spit cup. That's a sin.
Hey, I just do it just because I don't want to get drunk.
Well, that's the best part of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. So this is your 17, you said?
Yeah, so this is 17. It's more buttery. Not huge, but you can tell on the nose.
It's kind of hard after having the Chardonnay that we just had to taste it. But.
Yeah, you can taste it. It's got that definitely that buttery feel. I mean,
Grandma's bread.
I was going to say like movie popcorn.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah.
I mean that's literally the first thing that came to my mouth is, sometimes when you ask for extra butter on the popcorn, that's what it tastes like.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not saying the wine tastes like popcorn. I'm just saying the buttery taste.
It's the exact same chemical that's made.
Diacetyl.
Really?
Yeah, so the same chemical that's used in things like butter flavored popcorn and stuff. It's diacetyl. It's a byproduct of the secondary fermentation.
I mean, I'm not saying I don't like it. Go ahead. I love it. It's actually really good. I'm not a big Chardonnay buttery flavored person, but that's really good.
Yeah, I'm not either. And though basically, it's if you remove all the lees, nothing's going to be there to absorb the diacetyl, and that was one of the last vintages that Compass Rose made off of our wine, and so it was most likely filtered pretty early on in the process.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, a little bit more buttery notes.
All right, so let me go to our social media stuff right quick, and we'll continue this story because this is some good stuff here. So our social media, you can find us on Facebook at We Know Texas Vino. You can also find us on our website at weknowtexasvino.wine or .com. You can also find us on any podcasting platform, and when you find us, give us a 5-star rating, give us some feedback. Tell us what wineries we need to go to, what kind of education topics you want to talk to, or just tell us how great we are, and just say we got a great show. For a lot of y'all who don't know this, we are actually listened to in 35 different countries right now. Yeah, that's what I say when I tell people this whole last week we were here. How many people you got follow? I was like, well, I can't see how many people I have follow. I can see how many downloads, and I can see where they're coming from. And I pulled up a country list, and it was 35 different countries.
That's awesome.
And we're right on the cusp of hitting 9,000 downloads now.
That's awesome.
So for being a new podcast, we're still very young. We're getting quite a bit of traction here. And this week down here, I've talked to a lot of people. We've given out a lot of flyers. And so hopefully we get more new followers and more new people into this. So you're listening to episode 77 of We Know Texas Vino. We're at a beautiful place called Robert Clay Vineyards and Estate Winery. And I know we didn't actually go to the vineyard. Actually, we left wine of Dotson. Was it for Dotson?
Dotson and Sprontons.
Yeah, and in GPS, it actually kept us going straight until I saw your text message that says, "Oh yeah, you need to come to the downtown location," and off to the left I went. But obviously, the winery is beautiful here. There's a baby. Is that a baby grand or is that an actual grand?
That's a baby grand.
It's my wife's piano.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yes, I don't play. I play chopsticks. So, guys, I've sat on y'all's website and I've read your stories. You being an IT guy, being an IT guy and being a farmer, it's completely different spectrum.
Yeah.
I mean, did you think you really was going to do this being an IT guy?
So I really, for me, it was just, I grew up, when you take those trips with your parents cross country and you're sitting in the car and back in the day, there wasn't like video games to play and all that kind of stuff. So you just stare out the window and I'd stare out the window and I'd see these guys on the tractors. And ever since then, I just always had this dream of farming someday. And it actually hit me. I was 38 and I had been working for like 20 hours straight. I was doing during the .com boom and bust in Austin. And I thought I was having deep vein thrombosis from sitting so long. And I told my wife, I was like, I'm done. And she's like, well, what are you going to do? I was like, we're going to go be farmers. And she looked at me and she said, we are not going to be farmers. Because she had grown up on a ranch as a kid. And I'd kind of given up on it, to be honest, because she was pretty set on not being farmers. And one day I'd gotten an email from her and she had sent me the link to this Robert Clay Vineyards. And we came out, looked at it, Paul Buist had esophageal cancer, so the vineyard hadn't been taken care of for about 4 to 5 years. Just basic trying to water it a little bit, and Sandstone had gone out there and made wines. They would get the fruit off the vines during those years and make some wines off of them. But other than that, they hadn't been pruned in years. I mean, some of the vines were touching each other across the rows.
Wow.
10-foot spacing. So actually, if you really want to see what it looked like, this is pictures of what the vines looked like back in 2012. And you can tell.
Oh. Wow. Yeah. They very much unattended.
It was only watered.
We took truckloads and not even probably watered a whole lot, because I went back and looked at some Google Earth photos back in some of the days when I know there were droughts, and you could tell it hadn't been watered. So the vines, I think, are stronger because of it, to be honest. I mean, the 25-year-old vines now. That's Paul Buist right there in that one picture.
That's the only picture we have of him.
And it's not even of his face.
No.
That's, it's amazing to see what it was and what it is. Y'all did an amazing job.
Thank you.
I know from a little bit of vineyard work I have done, it's not easy, and it's already being maintained. Y'all are coming out here doing stuff that hasn't been maintained in a while and trying to get it retrained.
Well, it's interesting because, probably the week after, so I had started with Bill Blackman, worked with me a lot, and then Canberra Garland in the beginning. She had the vineyard at Florence. And I asked Bill to come out the first week after I had worked out the deal with the Buist, because I went out and talked to him. It was for sale, and I said, I'm not going to buy the place because I really don't have the money to pay for it, but I want to learn. And I'm finding it very difficult to find people that would let me just work for free. And
which is weird.
Which now I understand why, because I realize how much effort it is, and I almost hate asking people to. People tell me all the time, "Hey, I'll come work," but I don't hesitate to do it because I know it's hot as hell. It's a lot of manual labor, down on your knees, and it's not easy work. So basically, I ended up going out there, meeting with him, tried to convince him just to let me do a $0 lease. And I would take the money off the fruit because I'd be doing all the work, and he told me to get off his property. And then about 2 weeks later, he called me back and he asked if I was serious, and I said, yeah. And that's when those pictures were taken. So we headed out there right after. And that was the start. So 3 years, I worked out a 3-year lease, basically, where I had the option to purchase at the end. And that was my chance to learn everything. So when I started, my vision was, I was 38. I'll spend 10 years focusing just on growing and try and master, growing the best grapes possible. And then 10 years winemaking, and then probably 10 years consulting, and then retire. But as I found when I got into it, it was a lot of work. And I quickly realized I wasn't even not even year 2 into it. So 2015, we decided to start making our own wine. So it quickly went from, I just started seeing all of our fruit going into really high-end wines that were selling for, $85 a bottle. And here I was getting paid very little to farm them. And I thought, I can do that. So I made my first wines in 2014. I tore my wife's storage unit apart at the house, put an air conditioning in it, and threw some tanks in. I didn't tell her until she was actually at Home Depot, and I said, "Hey, are you at Home Depot? I just ordered an air conditioning unit. Can you pick it up?" That's how she learned that I had tore apart her storage unit.
So was that her she shack that you tore apart?
Yeah.
Oh, see, but you know what? Okay, it works itself out. You're making wine in her she shack. I mean, she can't be too upset.
Well, it turned out pretty well because I started catching her in the middle of the night I'd hear the door slam to it, and I'd look out, and she's walking out in her pajamas and a glass of wine. I was like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "We're out of wine, so I'm drinking some of yours."
So she needed a cough syrup, is what she needed. That was what she was looking for. A cough syrup.
Yeah. Well, and she was pretty picky on her wine, and so when I saw her drinking the wine, I thought maybe I was onto something, and so that's what really launched me into going for it in 2015.
Interesting. So when you started making your wines, so what did you pick up a whole bunch of stainless steel tanks, or did you do some carboys, or how did you actually do it?
Well, so that happened very quickly. So I had planned on making wine here. This was Compass Rose Cellars. And the deal I had worked out was to trade fruit for letting me make my first wines here. Okay. And so Compass Rose had all the equipment, air conditioning, everything I would have needed to do everything. And I had learned the year before working with Rob Nida, because I helped out Rob Nida here at Compass Rose. He was the winemaker at the time. And about 2 weeks before harvest, I got a call from Mark saying that he decided to move the entire winery to high.
Okay.
And he literally took the air conditioning unit. He took all of the equipment.
Oh, man.
And I really wanted to make my wines here. And so that's kind of how Parr Vineyards also came to make wine in the same place, because I had looked at Parr that week, and I said, you keep talking about doing wine. How old are you? And he said 70. And I said, maybe it's time to get started. I said, you and I can do this together here, and we'll just make it Mason Wine Growers, and you and I will be just two grower winemakers. And that's how we got started here. And so we took over the property. Parr and I started sharing on the equipment, and I wouldn't it's too costly to do it all by yourself.
Right.
And so that's, we ended up buying the property from Compass Rose, and now it's Mason Wine Properties with 2 growers, 2 winemakers.
Interesting. So how did Robert Clay name come out of it? Because the original owner's name isn't Robert Clay.
No. So his kids, there's a bottle over there on the shelf. I don't know if you can see it.
Okay.
But see the 2 kids on it? He'll go get it for you. But so that's Robert and Clay. Robert and Clay Buist. That's how the name came to be.
Okay.
Yep. So they went by Bobby and Crash Buist in Mason. So that's how everybody knew him here. No one actually.
Bobby and Crash?
Bobby and Crash.
Yeah.
So Bobby's actually got his PhD in geology now. I think lives in Houston, and Crash lives in New York. He's doing acting and directing.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, we found that bottle in the barn in a bunch of sand.
That's awesome that you have this, because now you have the actual part of the history. That's
really
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, that's what we decided to keep the name too. It's like,
and it's funny because Don Pullum actually made the wine that's in this bottle.
Wow. You're talking about coming full circle now.
It's got his vineyard on the back, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And when I showed this to Don goes, "That's not the original front label." And so Paul Buist had made this label probably and put it on this bottle.
Interesting.
But it's probably, I think it's going to have Robert Clay. So the Touriga Nacional would have been from Robert Clay, probably the Ruby Cab, the Merlot. I know they grew a lot of these. They had an experimental block that just had a bunch of, like, 2 rows of each one of those.
Huh. Well, that's fascinating. That's, first off, the name, and then to find that bottle in the barn.
Yeah. It's very cool.
That's really, really amazing. Too bad there wasn't wine still in it.
Yeah, the cork's still in there.
Oh, it is. So
I actually tasted a wine the other day. So La Cruz de Camal, Louis Dixon from La Cruz de Camal made probably one of the first commercial Merlots off of it. And he did that with Tony Couturi out of California. And we opened a bottle the other day. It was almost 24 years old.
Oh, as old as me.
Yes.
How was it?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. Yeah. I mean, the wine, it had settled a lot to the bottom, but it had been stored in Louis Dixon's wine cave ever since at perfect temperatures. But yeah, we enjoyed it. We drank the whole bottle that night.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think the oldest bottle.
Post about it.
The oldest bottle I've drank was a 12-year-old Texan from Landon. I had a gentleman coming to me at Denison said he had this bottle. He was never going to open it because he didn't know, if it was going to be good or bad. So I traded him a bottle of Texas rum barrel for the regular Texas or Texan, which was a Sangiovese a cab soft blend. And I took it home, and it sat in my refrigerator for another 2 years. And then for our 1 year anniversary of the podcast, everybody, all the friends and family was over the house, and I opened the cork and I poured it for everybody, and they let me take the first drink, and I drank it. And I stopped and looked at them, and I said, I'm going to need y'all to put that back in the bottle. And they said, why? I said, because that's that good, and I'm not going to share with y'all. So it's, when you have that bottle and you don't want to open it, but you want to open it because you're curious. But if you open it, it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of one of those.
That's that way you need one of these Coravins. Then you just tap into one, and
we'll talk about that on a different episode. But speaking of the Coravins, there's a whole big scandal going on right now with people going into wine stores and actually using it to still wine out of the bottles.
Are you kidding me?
And then turn around and rebottle them and put a label on it saying it's the real thing. When technically the wine is, but the label and everything is not.
Interesting.
And they're selling it for half the value of that wine.
Oh,
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
If those people worked on a vineyard, they'd understand why that's really horrible to do.
Well, half of the people in this world, if they actually anything they stole from technology, that's a whole different podcast also. Yeah. So you finally you made that decision that you said, hey, you know what? I'm done working IT. I'm going to go grapes now. And the work that you did in the vineyard was amazing. And are you planting more now? How many more blocks have you planted since then?
So we put an additional 5 acres in, and I don't think we're really going to probably plant more. It's more than enough for what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Our whole model is to do estate bottled, estate grown. Me and my son doing probably 90% of the work out there. And we also do all the winemaking, and it's single barrel releases. Almost everything we do is a single barrel release. A lot of our plots are little half acre plots made really just to do. This is a plot of the property, but really with the purpose of doing single barrel releases.
Oh, so you got Tempranillo, Cabernet Sauvignon, Mourvedre, or Mourved, however you want to.
However you want to say it.
What Texas you're from?
Right.
Grenache, Syrah, Ruby. Okay, I got to know about this Ruby Red or
Ruby Cabernet.
I've never heard of it.
Oh, really?
Well, you will be able to try some today.
Oh, and then Barbera, Chardonnay, Merlot, and Tourega National, which I just heard that first time coming down here, along with Fiano. And I'm like, okay, what are these grapes? And I need to try some of them. And so I've got now, and y'all will be the third one I'll have, by the way. So
okay.
Just to kind of hint there. I have two different bottles right now from different parts of the high plain, from the hill country.
Of Tourega?
Yeah.
So Robert Clay's is the first planting of Tourega.
Yep. So I'm planning on having a bottle because I think what I'm going to do is when I get back home, we're going to do like it's not a vertical tasting because it's coming from, it's not from the same, the vineyard, but I'm going to do a tasting of all three from the different 3 parts areas of the hill country.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to charge $50 a head too.
Nice.
Oh, so it's interesting what y'all doing there. I mean, I love how to diversify on the vines you got there. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, if I was just a grower, I would never do this. So, I mean, this is because I'm making wine. If I was just growing, I'd probably just grow Merlot. Merlot grows incredible in Texas. And the canopy's easy to manage. The chemistry is very consistent. Mm-hmm. It always harvests about around the same time. Mm-hmm. Bill Blackman would probably tell you the exact same thing. It does very well in Texas.
So, one of the greatest things that I've been hearing about is this whole Hickory Sands AVA. Mm-hmm. And I've asked this question to Don and Alphonse a while ago, and I'm going to ask y'all this exact same question. What sets the Mason wine region apart from other regions of Texas?
So one of the things that when I started looking into this, I was told over and over again, if you're serious about growing grapes, you'll go to Mason County. That kept coming up over and over and over again. And then when I got out here, I started to realize it's like you've got the sandy soil. So phylloxera is not really a big issue out here. The pH on the soils are pretty close to like 6.8 to 7. The water here, the total dissolved solids is some of the lowest in the state, below 1,000 parts per million, which is incredible. If you look at brackish wells throughout the state of Texas, Mason County just sticks out like there's this big blank spot.
Right.
There's not any brackish wells. And you've got the rolling hills. So when we deal with freezes and stuff like that, it's usually, we deal with these freezes that aren't because we got 60, 70 mile an hour freezing winds coming in. It's usually, it's rained a couple days before, all cloud cover. Now all of a sudden skies clear up and heat just radiates, right? So you get these radiated heat cooling events, and those you can actually do something about. You can put in fans, you can use water to protect the vines. It's hard to do that in areas where all you're dealing with is high winds and flat land. There's not much that you can protect yourself against freezes. We've also got, the water here, you hit it at 240 feet and you're talking anywhere from 300 to thousands of gallons a minute of amazing water.
Right.
So with the heat, when we start getting into these really, really hot summers, we actually can do something about it. I haven't turned on the water once this season.
We've been swimming this whole season.
Yeah. And last season I had to turn it on at the end, in the end when it started getting really hot, but we had plenty of water to deal with it. We also have the diurnal temperature swings there's a pretty big difference. I don't know if you've read the document on the hickory sands, but it kind of goes into all of this because one of the things that made it really difficult for us going into this was we started off, it was Robert Parr's daughter started working on putting this all together, and it was just the Texas Hill Country at that point. So all we had to do was to prove, hey, the hickory sands is different than the Texas Hill Country. That's pretty easy to prove. But then the Llano uplift came along, and the document was pretty much complete. So it was almost a complete rewrite at that point.
Okay.
And we had to prove that we were not only different than the Llano uplift, but also different than the Texas Hill Country. So we had to look at everything from the rainfall, the diurnal temperatures, differences at night. We had to look at elevation and how that affected things.
Right.
It really changed. It was almost a complete rewrite of the entire document. But I would say the key things are, you've got the sand. We don't deal with the problems. Like if you're in areas where you've got clay, I can get in immediately after a downpour and I can spray if I need to.
Right.
So disease pressure is a lot less just from that perspective.
Correct.
And we don't, vines don't like wet feet.
They don't.
And they struggle a little bit more in sand than they do in areas where they might have access to a lot of water. So you end up with smaller berries. If you go look at our Cabernet Sauvignon, the clusters are super small, like less than half my fist. Okay. And berries are extremely small. And you'll see that across a lot of our varieties that we grow. And it's just, when it rains, even like it's done this season, the berries aren't swelling up real huge because the root systems aren't just sitting in the water.
Right.
So I think that makes a huge difference in the quality of the wines that you can grow.
Yeah. And I think, you hit it pretty well nail on the coffin out there is that if the vines don't sit in the water, you're not going to have these big, huge clusters. Where if you sit on the water, you may have the big clusters, but you may not have the flavor in those grapes.
Yep.
That's always an interesting little thing there.
Yeah, chemistry can be off too, and it just screws up the whole thing.
Yep, most definitely. So first off, I want to know how you got into this. I mean, just because
I was forced into it.
that's what I was going to ask you.
Well, I'll tell you the reason he's into it is because my wife gave me a great advice because she had told me years ago there were times where I would go to him and be like, you got to help me. Like, this is killing me. You know, I need help in the vineyard. And my wife looked at me and she said, don't do that. She said, if you make him work in the vineyard, he's going to hate it. And that was the best piece of advice she ever gave me, because come his senior year, I looked at him. I totally did not expect him to mention the vineyard at all. Mm-hmm. And he goes, yeah, I think I'm going to go into viticulture and enology. I don't know if you know that we started the first viticulture class
yes.
in Mason.
Yep.
This is the actual book.
Oh, that is.
Yeah. So that was written Texas A&M. We worked with them and the high school here and put that whole thing together.
That is.
Justin Shiner did all that. It's amazing book.
You know,
it's got all the information in it that you need.
But he was in the first viticulture class.
Yeah, I was. That was my freshman year. Was it a sophomore year?
I think it was your sophomore year.
Yeah, my sophomore year. A bunch of my buddies, and actually one other girl that was in that class with me. Her name's Amber, and she now works at Peters Prairie with Lex, which is also one of our old workers that used to help out at the vineyard.
Really?
Yeah. So Lex Fleming and Amber, they're all doing Peters Prairie now. So
that's fascinating.
The whole 9 yards there.
You know, I wish when I was going to school, and probably for you, that this kind of stuff wasn't available in high school. Mm-mm. You know, there's kids walking out of high school nowadays with almost a bachelor's degree, or even certificates in IT, or even in any field. This stuff did exist when we were in school, you know. So sometimes I wish this kind of stuff did.
Yeah, I was halfway a teacher at that point because our ag teacher didn't really know what he was doing. So I was always asked questions and be like, yeah, I can answer these. Let me just figure this out real quick. And then
so did y'all
teach half the class.
Did y'all plant a block for them at the high school also?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I donated the vines and all the trellis equipment and everything for it.
That's pretty amazing. I didn't realize that was something I taught in high school here. I know there's the FFA up in North Texas. They do have a viticulture and enology class, and they go out there and volunteer for a lot of the wineries out there. Mm-hmm. They help out. But that's awesome. That's actually part of the curriculum.
Yeah, they can teach it at any high school in the state.
Wow.
Viticulture.
No, but I learned to love chemistry, and I really love playing the game chess, and that's why I got into this. Wine, I just see as a big old chemistry lab. I can be able to see all the different levels of pH, acids, and all to see what it tastes like. I love whenever I get a wine, I always like to go, like, tell me everything that's about it. Tell me pH, tell me the acid levels. I want to know what the alcohol percentage is to the point. And then like the vineyard, I love chess, and it's just like a huge chess game. You just got to move the right pieces at the right time. If you go too early, move your queen too early, you'll get taken over. But
or if you harvest too late and it rains,
then you're real screwed.
Or you just make, like we did last year, took the chance and decided not to put the hail nets down, and we got baseball size hail at 80 mile an hour.
If your gut tells you to go do it, go do it.
Yeah.
So this year we put the hail nets down immediately. Yeah. After both us. So we got hit, Parr got hit, and Bill Blackman. Oh. We all got hammered last year. Really, Bill got the worst. But we got it pretty bad enough for me to throw up my hands on the Touriga last year. It was pretty devastating.
I would come springtime, I would just put the nets up. I don't care. Just put them up.
Yeah.
Just have them there, because that way you don't have to worry about it. Something I've always thought about, it would be actually interesting, but I've found out real quickly after seeing somehow some of these vineyards are so large, having where how you got those big shaded areas where they pull tight and it's kind of like a little trampoline, but big shade. I mean, that would be great to have.
Yeah.
But I realized when I sat there and looked at the cost of it, not feasible.
Yeah, they do make them, net systems that you can pull over a vineyard,
right?
And they are pretty costly. I mean, what we ended up doing is we ended up putting wires on all of our nets, so it took like another 2 to 3 hours per net to string wire in it. But so now they're like curtains on the vines.
That's not too bad.
No, we just leave them out there all the time, and it's easy to drop them. So that's made our life a lot easier.
Interesting.
Definitely when it comes to harvest too. You can just drop the wires, drop the nets, and it just easy picking once you get that far.
Well, that's fascinating. I've never thought about doing that. I mean, I've seen people out there with rolls of nets and run it out there and clip it up and they're done. But that does make it a lot easier.
That's how we used to do it. But this is, it's definitely been a game changer. It's the side netting, it's hail net / insect netting. And it's definitely been a game changer.
Well, we talked about the hickory sands AVA, but one of the bigger hot topics right now, and it's pretty what most vineyards are actually talking about, it is sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
What practices are y'all doing in y'all's vineyard for sustainability?
I mean, we try to water as little as possible. Mm-hmm. We try and use a very small tractor. Like I use the Kubota B3000,
okay,
which is very small.
Mm-hmm. You have problems getting on it?
No, it's actually closed. It's a closed cab. Our heads hit the top sometimes, but that burns a lot less diesel than taking my John Deere out there, mm-hmm. and it doesn't compact the soil like the John Deere will. And we stopped doing things like using Roundup, mm-hmm. stuff like that, and to minimize just having to, drive the vineyard and do that kind of stuff all the time. And we mow when we need to. We tend to let the grass get a little bit longer than probably most people would, mm-hmm. but I do that because it helps with evaporation. I've seen, when I've had bald ground right under the vines, you'll water and it just dries up instantly. Yep. Versus if I leave some of that cover there, I can go in and I can still, an inch or two underneath and I've got water, the soil's still wet.
Right.
So, I've tried to get away from, always making it immaculate and bald looking. It's a farm. It's a working farm.
Right.
The stickers are probably the only thing I really
Once the
don't
stickers
like.
get up to your knees, that's when it's a problem.
And those are the grass spurs, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, those things right there, when you get them on there, you forget about it. You try to get them off. And then you take them home and you're like, now I got to patch my house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
I think those are the worst weeds than any other weed out there.
I agree 110%.
So are y'all doing any kind of regenerative growing as well out there?
So, I mean, we would do things like take our must out, back out to the vineyard and that kind of stuff, if that's what you're referring to. Yeah. We've always done that. Other than that, I mean, I don't till, for example. So like tilling is something I stopped doing years ago. That actually releases quite a bit of carbon from the soil and it disturbs the soil quite a bit. So I stay away from doing that. Which is this? What did you just pour?
This is 16 Tariga.
Oh,
you saw that look on my face.
I saw the look on your face. I was like, what did you just pour? Because I was wanting to have the Ruby Cab.
Oh,
I wanted to go Tariga first.
That Tariga.
We'll have the Ruby Cab after.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one.
I had to think. My brain was still processing the smell here.
Yeah.
This smell on this nose on this thing is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. So this one was 36 months in barrel. So I only use French oak on everything. I use strictly Rudeau barrels. I've always used them since the beginning, and the barrels have been excellent. And the company has been awesome to work with. So I've kind of stuck with them. And every wine you'll have is off of a Rudeau French oak barrel.
So I don't know if y'all want to describe my look to the listeners.
Yeah. Well, I knew something was up.
That is, holy cow.
Yeah. So that's one of the first plants of Tariga Nacional in Texas right there.
So that one was actually in a neutral French oak barrel that was about 3 years old by the time I started using it. We can try the 17 Tariga as well. The 17 was in barrel for 5 years. Well, 4.3 years, so 52 months.
If you come to our tasting room and you're going to do a tasting, you're going to get a lot of experimentation. We love experimenting and seeing what does what to a wine. And so like with that Chardonnay that you had before, you saw the difference between filtered and unfiltered.
Right.
And then with this one, we have one that's 16 and 17, so you can taste one with neutral barrel oak and then one with French oak.
That is absolutely amazing. And again, so I've never heard of Touriga Nacional until I came here. And all I've heard of this weekend is about Touriga Nacional. And I'm like, what grape is this? I have not heard of this.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, the first time we heard it was at Portree. And she was talking about planting something. And I'm like, what is this you're talking about? I've never heard of this before. And then literally the next winery over we went to, they had some already there. And I tried it. I liked it. I bought a bottle. And then we went to another one the next day, had another one. I liked it. I tried it, bought it. You know?
It's a wine. Excuse me. It's a winemaker's grape. I would not recommend it for a grower. So, like, if you were just going to grow, don't pick Touriga Nacional. If you're going to have a winery and you want to produce some really great wines, Touriga Nacional is awesome. The reason why is because Touriga Nacional really has a mind of its own. It does not want to be trained. It doesn't want to be told what to do. It grows up, down, left, right.
So it's like a 3-year-old.
Exactly.
It's like 5 3-year-olds.
Oh my gosh.
and the berries are very small. The clusters are very small.
Yeah, that's what I've
It's a
heard.
lot of work for a little bit of fruit. And so, like I said, if you're going into this business and you're just going to be a grower, Touriga Nacional, I would stay very far away from. But if you're going to make wine and you're going to do estate wines, Touriga Nacional is definitely one that I would look at.
You know, one of the biggest flavors I get out of it is raspberry. Mm-hmm. Like I get that really nice little raspberry tartness out of it. Mm. And but it's not, because you know how sometimes when you get raspberries and they're really, really tart and overpowering. This is not. I mean, you get the raspberry tartness, you get that flavor of a raspberry, but it's very subtle on that finish, and I like that.
Smooth.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, this is at Georgia James Steakhouse in Houston.
That's a good choice of wine there. So if you're going to go to that, which steakhouse is it?
Georgia James Steakhouse.
Georgia
in Houston.
James Steakhouse. If you're going to go there, go get you a bottle of this. It's amazing. So, all right, we've got wine going here. Let's see, I got more questions, so I'm having to pull my phone up because I got them there. So, one of the questions I've been asking lately, because this has been added to my list of questions, how do you balance your traditional winemaking techniques with more innovations for innovations in your vineyard? Let me redo that question. How do you balance your traditional winemaking techniques with modern innovations in your vineyard? It's a tough question.
So I'll go back to something that Drew Talent told me years ago. And Drew Talent told me, he said, if you grow quality fruit, you don't need a winemaker. And I found that to be very true.
Okay.
I'm not a winemaker. I took like 1 or 2 classes, but everything I've learned from Google. But it is very true. If you know the growing and you know the fruit and you know the chemistry and you have control over that, it makes your job making wine very easy.
Oh, yeah.
So, and at our size, I will say I'm looking at some stuff in the future. Like I'm actually seriously considering looking at like a Monarch tractor, which is an autonomous tractor. And the reason I'm looking at that seriously is because that would give me he and I more time to focus on the vines, because the autonomous tractor could go off and do the things like the spraying or mowing, the stuff that doesn't take a brain cell to do. And we could focus on, the quality of the fruit, dropping fruit, leaf pulling, that kind of stuff.
Shoot, the whole 9 yards.
That's okay.
I mean, I've looked at other things. Like I've looked at everything for bird nets. Like I've looked at lasers. I've looked at the whole 9 yards. Lasers don't work around here because the mockingbird doesn't give a crap about a laser. It's like we've got we've got one bird that just doesn't care, and it really doesn't even care about like the green bird nets. The mockingbird would dive bomb those.
It's
and
a
go
crazy thing to see.
It'll go right through those green nets. And we haven't had that problem now that we've got the side netting, but Yeah. But in the beginning, I was doing a lot of stuff. When you talk about innovation, I was doing stuff with, like, I had these sensors out in the vineyard that were like these little houses that insects would go into it, and it would use electricity to check the voltage as the I don't know exactly how it works, but it somehow can tell what kind of insect it is based on the conductivity through the bug, right? And so it was used to pick up if you had great berry moths in the vineyard, and it would alert you on your phone if there were great berry moths in the vineyard. And it worked okay until I had one of Blake's friends come out to help us deal with raccoons, and he shot it.
Okay, so that's actually one of the questions I have here. There's some memorable stories working in the vineyard.
Oh, there's a ton of them.
Oh, I need to hear about this raccoon story now, because you brought it up.
Yeah.
So who's going to be the one actually telling this? Who's going to tell the right version? Who's going to tell the wrong version?
Well, I'll tell it. So it was like nighttime, and the thing had a little blinking light on it. Uh-huh. And his friend's an excellent shot, and he saw this thing from like halfway across the vineyard. He sees this light,
right?
And he's like, "Oh, there's a raccoon," and he takes it out from about 100 yards away at night with a night scope. And these were not something I paid for. These were part of a research project. No. So I had to explain to the company. I was like, "Hey," I told them what happened. And they actually ended up putting it up, he said, for display in their corporate office, showing that someone had shot the thing.
Yeah, I had these raccoons come out of my vineyard, and they crawled up on this thing here, and they tore it up. Yeah, it looks like there's a bullet that went through it, but yeah, it was all raccoons.
Yeah. I swear it was just raccoons.
We had the lightning story. The
lightning strike.
Well, no, we did have the lightning strike story, but we had this. So there was one night where we had been harvesting all day long. We were exhausted. I had to run fruit into the winery, and I told my wife, I said, "Hey, look, tell the guys after we're done with the Merlot, ask me if we can go up and they can help us finish the Ruby Cab. We have a huge storm coming." And somehow words got confused, and that didn't get communicated. And I got back, and they were already packed up and ready to leave. And I'm like, and literally you look over and you see, I mean, the fruit is way ready to harvest, and you can see massive Texas storm coming over the hill.
Oh, no.
So we get out there. I'm in the tractor. We have a light tower at that point raised up. Well, there was a electrical wire in the vineyard that used to hang pretty low. And I was driving along.
You can tell
and it's nighttime, and I can't hear anything. It's an enclosed cab. And I hit that electric wire with the tower. Oh, no. And it breaks it, and it falls on the trellis. So it's live wire bouncing on the trellis, catching the ground on fire. It knocked out the power for all of Streeter, Texas. Like a 10-mile radius, all the power is not, and this is like 2:00 in the morning. That was a pretty good
now
story.
Now everybody knows why the power was out.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Yeah, that was probably
17, 16, 15, somewhere around there.
Probably
statute of limitation hasn't passed yet.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's some of the, also, I think, have working in the vineyard myself, that's some of the fun that you have out there. You know, I know there's been a couple of times where I'm sitting out there pruning vines out at the vineyard, and I've come across things that look like a snake. And at first, you know, you're kind of like, oh my God, and you pull out your knife and your clipper and you get ready to fight this thing, and then you realize it wasn't a snake; it was just some kind of, maybe there's skin sitting right there, or another bite that just looks kind of weird. And you literally, your heart stops beating, and you go into, we're going to fight. Somebody's going to die here, and it's not going to be me.
So we have these pocket gophers in the sand.
Oh, yeah.
And so we'll get these pocket gophers that go along the sides of the vines. And I've stuck my hand in there one time on a rattlesnake, and it was a baby rattlesnake. to be
Even worse.
Yeah, it would have been worse. Luckily, I pulled my hand out fast enough, but I've had that happen
Scare the
before.
daylights out of you, sure.
I've had those pocket gophers, the rain. If we have heavy rains, the rains will catch one of those pocket gopher holes on our hills, and it'll make a small pocket gopher hole turn into a huge hole underground. And then you drive a John Deere tractor over that. I've almost, and you're mowing, right, going probably 10 mile an hour, and all of a sudden your whole front right tire goes into the ground. That happened one time.
You know, have you ever
Taking out a
thought,
couple choices.
Yeah.
are you serious?
Oh yeah.
And
With
you-
the mower.
Oh well, not on purpose.
Well, I mean, I was not on purpose. Like, I'll show you, Dad.
I hit this vine harder than you did.
Well, so when you have those gophers, do y'all play the theme song to Caddyshack? I'm all right. Oh, mercy. Well, you know, so y'all's whole vineyard is a family ordeal. This is not just a father and son thing. This is a family whole ordeal.
We all live on the vineyard. Yep.
You know, and that's the biggest thing. I want to say the biggest thing. That is the most common denominator I hear in all wineries across Texas. It's majority family ran. Father, son, mother, daughters, friends, families. Everybody's out there helping in the vineyard some way or another, contributing. And sometimes they complain, and sometimes they don't. You know, but for the most part, you got family, and it's a family ordeal that's happened that helps out, and that's an awesome thing. That's really awesome. So I'm going to probably step into the family role over here. So in doing this whole winery, what is y'all one like? What's the word I'm looking for? I'm drawing a blank. I want to say moral, but it's not a moral, but
Goal.
well, I want to say goal. I would say y'all's, kind of like a golden rule. I'm drawing a blank. It starts with a P. Philosophy, yes. What is y'all's philosophy within y'all's family when it comes to grape growing and winemaking?
I mean, honestly, when I started, I just like the farming aspect of it. You know, the winemaking came out of necessity. But I knew that if I was going to do it, I was going to try and make some of the best wines that we could. But really, the philosophy is family run. The wine's made by the people that are actually doing the work in the vineyard. I think that makes a world of difference in the wines. And to keep it small and manageable, you know, to where we're not sitting behind a desk again. You know, we enjoy doing, there's nothing better than, you know, he and I sitting here 2:00 in the morning. Yeah, we're exhausted, but we're like pressing off fruit. How many dads get to do that with their kid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I was away most of the time growing up when he was growing up, because I was, you know, working in the corporate world.
9 to 5.
Yeah. And, you know, in Austin where it could be 1 hour, it could be a 3-hour drive to get home. You know, I could be home at 5 p.m. or I could be home at 9 p.m.
Right.
And here, you know, it's awesome to see him. He can be working out in the vineyard and he can step in and see his son. Like, most dads don't get to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, extremely blessed.
Yeah.
That they will do that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
That's, I mean, I had this vision in my head when I started it of like, that's what I would want it to be. And the goal now is just try and keep it that way.
Right.
And not let it turn into a big corporate winery. Yeah. Because then I don't think I would enjoy it as much.
Yeah, and I think when you hit the corporate level, you lose the enjoyment and the passion in it, because then at that point you're like, I didn't want to do the corporate stuff in the first place, and I don't want to go back to it. And,
Right.
And so that would definitely lose some of that passion, that love that you have in it. It's awesome.